right and wrong. So the rod then becomes a measuring stick. And on the ruler, the lines are drawn to show you the various places in measuring out that 1 foot line or whatever it may be. Well, today we understand that one of the problems we have is the drawing of lines. For example, in the jurisprudence in our country, there may be a very small difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. It may only be 1 penny, but the line is drawn between them. There's a difference between a life sentence and a death sentence, and it only may be a matter of intent, but the line is drawn. There is a difference between pass and fail in school, and it may be only 1 or 2 points, but the line is drawn. And today we have people who object to the drawing of lines. But let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If when I leave here today and get in my car to drive down to Newport Beach, where the New Jerusalem is going to be located, and I get in my... Careful, I'll sick the guys from Mariners Church on you. And I'm driving down the line and driving down the road, and I see these white lines and these yellow lines, and I turn to my companion and say, you know what? The Department of Motor Vehicles in this state is trying to keep me from having a good time. The lines are drawn in the road, not to keep me from having a good time, but to keep me from killing myself. And we've got people in the world that are obliterating the lines where the behavior is not, lines are not drawn for behavior, and our children are killing themselves because they're trying to obliterate and erase the lines. We need to draw the lines. It's the father's responsibility to draw the lines for his children. He's the disciplinarian in the home. And may I simply say to you that when a young person reaches the age of 30, and they have never, between that age of 3 and 13 or 13 and 20, they've never learned to reason, and they have never learned to understand, they've never learned the process of the principles upon which we build our life. God never gives rules and regulations in the sense they are laws. They are laws, or they are principles by which if we obey them, we will live. For example, the law of gravity. That law of gravity is a principle that if you obey it, you're going to live. But if you take and crawl up to the top of this and jump off yelling, Jesus saves, defying the law of gravity, you're going to die when you hit that concrete. So as long as you obey that law or live by that principle, you will live. To violate it, transgress it, or to abrogate it means you die. So those principles or those laws are lines that tell us in our behavior how we're going to be able to live and have life more abundantly. I want to give you 7 propositions for a father raising children today. If you have pencil and paper, don't be a hearer of the word, be a doer of the word. Write them down. 7 propositions for raising the standard of our children. Proposition number 1, the father always establishes the atmosphere in the home. It makes no difference whether he's an autocratic, dictatorial, authoritarian figure, or whether he's a wimp, passive and complacent with no backbone. It makes no difference if he's an absentee father. It makes no difference what he is. The father always establishes the atmosphere in the home. Genesis 2:15 gives us the fact that when God created us as men, He gave us the stewardship in our life in Genesis 2:15, where He said, I want you to guide, guard, and govern. Say it with me. Guide, guard, and govern. We do not own what we possess. We're only stewards of it. You possess a body, but you don't own it. And if you're not a good steward of that body, it can be diseased, or it can become inhibited, or it can become obese. It can become a lot of different things that will impair your way of life. You do not own a wife. You're only the steward of her love. And her love is always a gift. And if you're not a good steward of her love, it can be impaired, as Gary Smalley said, or it can be diminished, or it can even die, because you're not a good steward of that love. You don't own her. That's all you are, is a steward. Now, the guide, guard, and govern directly relates to Jesus Christ when he came as the prophet, priest, and king. In the home, the father is to be prophet, priest, and king. Prophets speak from God to the people. Priests speak from the people to God. And the kings rule by serving. Jesus told us that he that would be Lord among you, let him be the servant of all, which simply means you're only qualified to lead to the degree you're willing to serve. If you're not willing to serve your family, you're not qualified to lead your family. If as a pastor you're not willing to serve your congregation, you're not qualified to lead your congregation. Jesus gave us that principle by which we are to live. Isn't it interesting? The first 5 books in the Bible, called the Pentateuch, the entire first 5 books of the Bible are the stories of 7 men. And the reason for that is that all the revelation of God on earth comes through men. I don't care whether it's Adam or Abraham or Moses or Peter or Paul. And even when God wanted to reveal himself in person, he came as the man Christ Jesus. So all the revelation of God that your family is ever going to have is what they're going to be able to see you as you live in front of them. If the Bible does not have lordship in your life, then Christ is not Lord in your life. Turn to the guy next to you and say, man, he's talking to you today. Fathers, here's principle number 2. Come on, you're on my time. Quick. Principle number 2. A father must love his family redemptively. There are 3 kinds of love that God has for us.